Hi, it's Wednesday. That means it's time for another video edition of Widower Wednesday. I'm Abel Keogh, author of Dating a Widower, and today we're going to discuss whether or not you should ask a widower out. This is, believe it or not, a common situation that I see in my email. I see it on some of the different widower or dating a widower boards that I visit, and basically the situation comes down to something like this. There's a woman who sees a widower on a regular basis, and generally she knows him. Maybe they're not like great friends, but maybe they're more of acquaintances. Where I don't know, they've been going to, they have kids that go to the same school. Maybe they go to the same church, or maybe there's some civic functions or something that they attend together, or that that he and the late wife attended, and she happened to be there. So usually there's some degree of familiarity with the widower. And anyway, as things happen, they start talking, and through these, through school, church, work. I guess work, you can throw work in there. They kind of get the idea that the widower might be interested in them. Maybe there's some flirting going around or some banter, but the woman usually thinks that the widower is sending signals that he might be interested, and he might be. So he sends these signals out, but he doesn't, he doesn't pull the trigger, so to speak. So he doesn't make the first move and say, "Hey, would you like to go get coffee, or would you like to go to a movie, or whatever, would you like to go see a concert or do something together?" The widower doesn't take that step. It kind of leads up to that, and there's always, flirtatious banter, or having fun. And so the woman's building up in her mind, well, I think he's interested. And then they start thinking, well, he's a widower, and whatever, he's been widowed 6 months, a year, 2 years, it really doesn't matter. They start thinking, well, this, maybe he doesn't know how to do it, or maybe this is hard for him, maybe he's not sure what to do. And so the question eventually comes down to is, well, should I ask him out? Should I take that first step and ask him out? And in the case with widowers, my answer is generally no, is that you should not ask a widower out. And I'm going to explain why you shouldn't do that, and why it's important that the widower actually take that step. And we're just talking, about asking a woman out and going on a date. It's really important that the widower does that. So I know that it's tempting to ask out, and I know in this day, I know that it's common for women to ask men out, and in general, I don't have a problem with that if that's the way that they want to go. But in the case of a widower, it's important that he takes that step. So let me tell you what's going through the widower's mind here. Is so that on your end, you're seeing that he's flirting and there's banter, or you see each other a lot, and he's sending signals that he's interested. And I'd say there's probably a good chance that he is interested. Men generally don't flirt or do, I don't know, engage in, I mean, they might occasionally, but on a regular basis, they usually don't do it on a regular basis unless there's some kind of attraction to the woman there. And, it could just be a physical attraction. It could be that he's thinking, well, this is, she's pretty cool, and I could see myself spending the rest of my life with her. But the problem is that the widower is probably still in love with his late wife, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a good thing he's still in love with his late wife. But the widower needs to be able to take that step to cause a little bit of separation. The biggest issue you see when women are dating widowers is widowers will struggle with starting a new chapter with someone else and ending that old chapter. And the best way for them to do it, or at least to get that process started, is for them to take the first step. They need to take that step in order to kind of start that little bit of separation. So the widower is always going to love his late wife, but there should be just a small part of, by the time he's, you're getting serious and looking at spending the rest of your life together, only a small part of his heart should be for the late wife. The rest of it has to be for you. And in order to start making that change, to kind of putting his feelings to the late wife to the side so he can focus on you, it's important that the widower takes steps that causes that separation. So let me give you an example from my own life. If you've read Room for Two and some of my relationship guides, you know that I was in a serious relationship before I met Marathon Girl. And it was serious in the sense that, I think that she thought that we were going to get married. I don't know if it was that serious in my mind, but I mean, I spent a lot of time talking on the phone with her. I flew down to Phoenix to see her. She flew up here. I mean, we spent a lot of time just kind of flirting and playing around and, exploring the possibility that, hey, that this might get serious. But the way that relationship started was on the phone, and we were mutual friends before my wife died, and I think she just called in to check on me every once in a while, and things, one thing led to another, and suddenly we were talking on the phone every night, and we never really said it, but we just kind of became whatever, boyfriend, girlfriend. We kind of became going out. There was never in my mind that step of me taking that step back and thinking, do I want, to ask her out, or do I want to say, should we be serious? I never took that step, and it was easy for me. And you know what? It's easy for widowers almost want the woman to take that step, and there could be lots of reasons for it. Part of it could be that they haven't been in the dating game for a long time, and this is all new to them. But part of it might be that they aren't sure how they're really feeling, and if the woman comes and asks them out, it doesn't matter if he's confused about how he's feeling. It doesn't matter that he's unsure about this relationship. She asked him out, and it's kind of filling that void that can be found in a widower's heart. And so, with this first relationship I was in, there was never really any discussion or anything of me just kind of saying, hey, I enjoy talking to you on the phone a lot. Would you be interested if I flew out to Phoenix and, we kind of see if this thing got serious? I actually, the first time I flew out to Phoenix was to go see a different friend, and I just knew she lived in the same city, so I figured we could spend some time together at some point that time. I never had to take that mental step in my mind of saying, I want to take that, I want to make that little break between my late wife and this new relationship. I never had to do that with that first relationship. Now with Marathon Girl, it was different. So Marathon Girl and I met at church. It was the same kind of thing. We'd see each other. I tried to engage her in conversation and talk to her. I really liked her. Marathon Girl, when we got started, really wasn't that interested. She didn't even know I was a widower, but she really wasn't interested. And I can't tell you how many weeks I spent agonizing over asking her out. It was this process. I was probably 2 or 3 weeks before, from the time I really realized I want to ask her out, between the time I actually did it, and I agonized over it. I ran through my mind 100 times. Well, this is how I'm going to do it, or no, this is how I'm going to do it. This is what I'm going to say. And there were some days that's all I could think about was how I was going to ask her out. And it was a struggle. And it wasn't just because, I was new. I think part of it was I was a little, insecure about being a widower and how that might be, whether or not she'd accept that or reject that. But I think, with over a decade of hindsight here, I think a big part of it is I was wrestling with the fact that whether or not Marathon Girl was worth it. Was it worth causing that, taking that first step, causing that little break between my past life and starting a new life? And so anyway, I ended up asking her out. We had a horrible first date. Thankfully, I got a second chance. If you want to read all the details, that's in Room for Two. But the fact that I had to take that step and I had to be the one to ask her out, looking back, did so much for our relationship. That one little act did so much because it forced me to be the one taking action. It forced me to cause that little bit of separation. And it forced me to evaluate how much I really wanted to date her again. It just forced so many emotions and things up there. And, things worked out great with me and Marathon Girl. And I look back and say, well, what if it had been the opposite? What if Marathon Girl had asked me out? Would it have worked out? I think so, but I think it would have been a lot rougher. I think if Marathon Girl had been the one to see me and say, hey, you're cute, let's go out. I would have jumped all over it. Don't get me wrong. I would have said, yes, 100 million times. Let's go out. Let's go have some fun. But I think the process of me from transitioning from my relationship with my late wife, my past life, to a new relationship with her would have been much more rocky. And pretty much every step along the way with Marathon Girl, she was the one that had me make the decision whether or not I wanted to do this. I knew in the back of my mind that Marathon Girl, that, if she got wind that things that I wasn't moving on or things weren't working out, she was gone. And so, it seems like in almost every step, I was the one being forced to decide, is this relationship with her worth it? And it was frustrating and agonizing sometimes, to be honest, completely from my point of view, frustrating, agonizing. And sometimes I almost just wanted to say, no, you decide, but the fact that I did it meant so much, I think, to our relationship. And I think it contributed to the speed of which we dated and got married. For those who don't know, we started dating maybe about 5 months after my late wife died, and 10 months later we were married. I mean, that's how fast it went. But it really had to do with me. I look back at it. It had to do with me taking that first step and having the courage and working it through my mind to actually take that step and ask Marathon Girl out. So if you find yourself in a position where you're flirting with a widower and doing things like that, be patient. Now, I'm not saying that that you shouldn't encourage him to ask you out. You flirt with him, give him hints, do what you think it takes to maybe. Sometimes guys are kind of stupid and don't get it, but do what you think it takes to drop all the hints for this widower to ask you out. But I guarantee, not only will your date be better, but he'll be in a better emotional place to evaluate the relationship if he takes that step and he's the one asking you out and he's the one maybe making plans for that first date, because he needs to evaluate how serious he is. And if you take that away from him, you may get a date out of it, but you're taking away that introspection that he needs and that decision process he needs in order to create that little bit of separation and to decide, is she worth it? Is she worth getting to know better? I promise you, if you do that, your relationship has a much better chance of success than if you're the aggressive one and ask him out. Thanks for watching. I'm Abel Keogh. Feel free to subscribe or comment in the links below. I'll be back next Wednesday with another video.